Want to talk about when Harry met Sally?
No.
What movie are we talking about?
When Harry met Sally.
Harry met Sally.
Sally and Harry.
Did we ever...
No.
The only thing I remember is the orgasm scene.
Yes! Yes!
It basically came out of my experiences as a single person after having been married for 10 years and thrown back into the dating world and making a complete and utter mess of my social life. I was certainly not capable of making a relationship at the same at that time, but you still want to have sex.
I got a call that Rob Reiner wanted to meet with me about possibly doing a movie. And we went to lunch, and he had this idea that I didn't like. Fortunately, we got it right out of the way. Rob was there with Andy Scheinman, who produces his movies. And they started talking about their lives as single men. It was very funny, very interesting.
I was thinking about doing something about men.
Jewish tradition pioneered by Woody Allen. The basic obstacle is the neurosis of the male character.
There were no built-in external obstacles except for the fact that they had their own, Sturm und Drang that they had to deal with.
So that your antagonist is yourself. Your protagonist, it's all internal. And that works. I mean, everybody understands that stuff.
Well, it was very clear that I would be using Rob as the basis for Harry. He was depressed, but he was very fond of his depression.
Well, I don't know that I enjoyed it. I mean, I certainly have made humor out of it,
He had done that with his depression. It was like a little pet that he would trot out and make jokes about.
I'm definitely coming down with something. Probably a 24-hour tumor they're going around.
I was also in a state of going through a lot of emotional difficulties and the moaning of the character and the complaining.
Will you be able to sleep?
If not, I'll be okay.
What'll you do?
I'll stay up and moan.
I think about death. I think about the half-empty glass kind of thing. I ask myself as I'm feeling the thing, and she would not always do that. And she would say, part of being a mature person is not always expressing everything that you feel at the moment that you feel it.
Harry, you're gonna have to try and find a way of not expressing every feeling that you have every moment that you have them.
So that's kind of a childish thing, which is wanting things exactly the way you want them when you want them. That's a very childish kind of thing, and I think men, generally speaking, are childish.
He needs to grow up. I always have thought that girls mature faster than boys, and I think that's true in this movie.
There are times and places for things.
I think I always thought Rob was going to play Harry because he used to read the script out loud whenever we worked. He played all the parts.
If I could think of anybody that would play the extension of me, it was Billy. We were best of friends at the time. We shared intimacies. We were always talking to each other on the phone. The scene where the two of them are lying in bed very much happened with Billy and I. We would be talking on the phone. We'd be each in our own beds and watching television and stuff. And we shared a lot of intimacies.
I was on the other end of the phone. Buddy, Casablanca, Channel 9. The most difficult thing for me to do playing Harry was to say to Rob, get out of the way. You have to let me be this guy. I know it's a lot of you, but there's also a lot of me in here.
Okay, here's Rob. Rob is neurotic. So then that meant that
The guys, Billy and Bruno and Rob, and they've known each other a long time.
See, I always resented that the girls would say it was a boys' club. We invited them to everything. They didn't want to go to a football game. Why? They didn't want to go to the World Series. Why? We invited them.
I don't understand this relationship. Billy and Rob and I have been friends for like 10 or 12 years. And then you get to, so basically what making this movie was for me was you'd go out to dinner with your best friends, you'd wake up in the morning, and you'd go to work, and you'd see your best friends again.
There was all these comics on a set.
Yeah, that's funny.
My only problem with Rob as a director is that he laughs. He so enjoys the scenes. He does them while you're doing them. And we would do scenes and you have, and you go, well, who's laughing? He goes,
I had to do this thing where I'm like crying wildly about it, wheezing about everything. And I could just feel Rob next to the camera going, like this right now. It was astounding to look over and see him going through it even more than I was going through it.
Well, at a certain point in the course of the movie, he and Andy said to me, you know, we've told you all this stuff about us. Now tell us something that we don't know about women. So I said, okay. I said, women fake orgasms. And they both said, not with me.
The idea of faking the orgasm. I mean, that was just a total shocker to me. And I did a little, you know, non-scientific survey around here in the office, and I found that well over 50% of the women said they had faked an orgasm at one time or another.
We're all fond of faking orgasms.
Yeah, I don't like the way I wear. She was like going out on a first date.
And she sits down, does the scene, we do a take, and it's kind of lackluster. And I think, now, you know, Meg, I said, well, let's do it again. I said, but, you know, if this is going to work, you got to really go at it.
Ooh. And Rob knew what it should be and wanted her to get there quickly, as most men do.
I said, look, let me just show you what I want.
No, it should be like this.
And I sat down opposite Billy, and like he said, you know, it's like having a date with Sebastian Cabot.
And this 200-pound bearded man sits down and proceeds to have the orgasm of a lifetime.
And I went through it. I started pounding the table. Yes.
He's pounding, he's screaming in that voice of his, yes, 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 and he's sweating.
He says it looked like, you know, Victor Buono, who, after eating a lot of hot Thai food or something.
He takes me aside and goes, buddy, I just had an orgasm in front of my mother. I said, no, you're just playing. He goes, no, I actually just had an orgasm.
Way better than I could have ever done.
Meg just sat there panting for about 8 or 10 hours. I don't know how many takes Rob did.
It sounded so good that I would just make mistakes on my side just to hear it again.
I couldn't imagine that she was going to do it again, but she did. She did it over and over and over and over.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Every time I had to do with different camera angles, we had to give him another sandwich.
Yes! 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 Oh! Oh! Oh!
I felt like I was doing it with her.
Oh, God. Oh.
She's great.
Right after Meg said, I could have an orgasm in the delicatessen, Billy said,
and then the lady at the next table says, I'll have what she's having.
And Rob said, and I know who the customer should be.
I'll have what she's having.
There was Rob's mother.
And I told my mother that this scene I think will be very funny, and the only way we'll leave that line in is if it tops it.
I'll have what she's having.
It wound up with the funniest line in the movie, and I think it's the funniest line in any movie I've ever done.
When we first started screening that scene, the women in the audience were laughing so loud, and the men were so quiet. It was truly electrifying to see.
The moment where, after they've made love, I meet this guy, Harry Connick Jr. I said, who is he? I never heard of him. He brought me a tape to my hotel room, and it was a demo tape. He was 20 years old at the time, and I heard, he put this thing in, and I said, geez. I needed somebody to do arrangements on the songs, to use existing songs, and to be able to routine them all. And Mark Shaman, Billy suggested Mark Shaman.
Mark Shaman was my rehearsal pianist at Saturday Night Live.
He was filming When Harry Met Sally, and he asked Rob, what are you going to do with music? And Rob said, I'm thinking of using standards, and I actually need someone to help arrange them right. And Billy said, I got the guy.
He knew every song possible.
I went in with a book of standards, with having read the script. I thought, well, this song and that song, and Rob just immediately hired me.
And he arranged a lot of the songs, did stuff with Harry, and also routined a lot of the songs.
Rob's choices were pretty well-known songs. I tried to get a few in there that are a little less. The one I was happy about getting in there is I Could Write a Book, because it completely describes the story of When Harry Met Sally. And the world discovers as my book ends how to make two lovers of friends. So Ping, that was in the lyric, the right moment in the movie to bring in the lyric.
I was sitting with my friend Arthur Kornblum in a restaurant. It was a Hornenthaler cafeteria.
It's interesting how the interviews developed, because one day I was sitting at my friend Alan Horn's house, and his mother and father were there, and I just, I noticed during the conversation, his father never opened his mouth, never said a word, and I just wanted to kind of engage him. And I just asked him out of the blue, I said, Saul, just, how did you and Mrs. Horn meet? And all of a sudden, he came to life. He lit up and told this story, which is the opening story in the movie.
And I said, Arthur, you see that girl? I'm going to marry her. And 2 weeks later, we were married.
They were how we met stories. The story of how my parents met is in there.
He was the head counselor at the boys' camp, and I was the head counselor at the girls' camp.
It's really interesting because here we have a story about how people meet and fall in love, and everybody has a story. Everybody's story is different, and they're all interesting.
How did you meet?
You tell them.
The original idea was to use real couples telling real stories, but as you know, if you've ever tried to ask your grandmother a simple question, the story is usually not concise.
I got married, and I didn't like him. It wasn't love at first sight.
So after they spent a couple of days, they decided to cast actors and have it done that way.
He was very romantic, very.
10 years later, I still see two couples sitting on a couch talking about Firestone tires. When I first got a tire, it was a fire, wasn't it?
The truth about this movie is
divorce.
You know, you can kind of fantasize about that, and you don't have to think about the harsh realities of what really happens between people.
How long have you been together?
40 years. When I was born, he was made for me.
I mean, I don't want to really be cynical about that stuff. I am a lot of the time, and I'm happiest when I'm hopeful. So this movie really supports that.
Do I believe in fate? Or do I believe in destiny? Yeah, I always say I believe in it in movies.
I don't know about all this stuff happening in life, but sometimes it does.
I've been single for like 10 years. I didn't think I'd ever meet anybody. Barry Sonnenfeld was the DP. And I said to Barry, I don't know if I'll ever meet anybody. I mean, it's a mess. There was a picture of Michelle Pfeiffer on the cover of Premiere magazine was lying around the office. And I had read somewhere that she was getting divorced, you know, and I thought, she seems like a nice person. And I said to Barry, maybe I'll give Michelle Pfeiffer a call. And he says, no, you're not going to call her. He says, I have a friend in New York, her name is Michelle Singer, and you're going to marry her. And that's the person I wound up marrying. And I met her during the making of the movie.
It had to be you. It had to be you. I wandered around and finally found the somebody who could make me be true, could make me be blue, and even be glad just to be sad thinking of you. But you say either, and I say either. You say neither, I say neither. Either, either, neither, neither. Let's call the whole thing.
Thank you.
It's been nice.
You wouldn't happen to have one of your pictures, would you?